The world is changing so fast. We thought that AI was moving fast. The world is moving even faster. So our job is to catch up.
We are thrilled to have Mike Wittgenstein with us, founder and managing partner at Story Miners.
AI is like a gun. The results you get depend on how you wield it and the judgment that you bring to its use.
Where do you see the biggest opportunities for businesses?
In an AI-empowered world, we don't have to practice scarcity economics. Scarcity economics means there must be a loser. There's so much news of the word disruption and so many strikes and so many layoffs, and that's what makes the news. But what we need to be focusing on are the folks who are integrating AI calmly, comfortably, profitably.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Simple Tech Talk, where we discuss the impact of AI across different businesses and industry. I'm your host, Taran Agarwal, and today we are thrilled to have Mike Wittgenstein with us, founder and managing partner at Story Miners. Mike is known for transforming bold business strategies into compelling stories, helping companies achieve game-changing growth. With impressive achievements at companies like IBM, McDonald's, and iPay, Mike's innovative methods have generated billions in new value through enhanced customer experiences and strategic storytelling. Mike, welcome to the show.
Teron, thank you so much for having me. It's so timely to talk about the things that we're about to talk about today because the world is changing so fast. We thought that AI was moving fast. The world is moving even faster. So our job is to catch up.
100% couldn't agree more. And it's a pleasure to have you on, Mike. Could you start by sharing a bit about your journey and the exciting work that you're currently doing at Story Miners?
Sure, well, that's a very kind question. And when you ask somebody who's been in business for a while about their journey, it can take a long time because they've had a long journey. I think what I'll share is a couple things that helped form my way of thinking about the world. So rather than just talking about corporate stuff and jobs and things like that, because you encapsulated that already, I'll talk about a few things that helped shape my points of view about the world. At 13, I started my first business. It was a little micro manufacturing business. We made hanging planters for nurseries. And that taught me a lot about business and accounting, and I hired kids in the neighborhood to put stuff together, and I had to negotiate and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. I made enough money to pay for part of my senior year abroad to Brazil, and boy, that was eye-opening. It was not common at the time for US citizens to go abroad for a year to another country. Lots of foreign
Oh,
exchange.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of exchange students would come to the US, but not very many Americans would go outbound. So I learned to stand in other people's shoes. I learned culture and how they trained their kids, how they made decisions, how they fought, their religions, what they believed in. And I walked away with the feeling that, there's more than one way to be. And remembering that today is so important because all of our work has to do with understanding the needs of our users. And when we're creating value with SaaS apps, for example, we've got usually to get more than one party to work together. That's where the real value comes from. So those kinds of experiences are priceless, to know how to listen and to not use your own biases to judge others, really key. Yeah, I did that also in the former Soviet Union. My undergraduate major was in Russian and Portuguese. So another battle story,
Sounds
but we need a new podcast for that, for all those stories. I bounced around a little bit before going to graduate school. During that time, I learned that if you just keep your eyes open and your ears open and suck in everything that's going around you, just go broader than your own horizons, you start to develop like your own little personal LLM, a database of like what people did and what happened next. And you start to draw on that as if it were your own experience. And after I started doing that, I realized that consulting was pretty cool. After graduate school, I found out it was pretty cool to get paid for people to listen to what you tell them to do. I got hooked on that. It's a lot of fun. Um, let's see what else. Couple other experiences. I started a digital agency in the 90s, worked as IBM's e-visionary in the early 2000s, and started Story Miners in 2002. And we've been working in brand storytelling, customer experience, and now advisory spaces. So what we do now And I'm sorry for such a long answer, but I'm so old, it takes a long time, So,
Take your time, Mike.
yeah, what we do now is we help, and instead of working on brands, we help executives with their plans. And with so much craziness in the world right now, so much unpredictable change, a lot of responsibility is falling to leaders to reconstruct, redesign, architect, and provide details on how their organizations are going to work in the future. You can't just say, I want 10% more sales. The reason you can't do that anymore is that if you don't give any other information or context, people will keep doing the same thing and just driving that number. But staying the same, keeping the same processes, the same ways of thinking, the same biases and operations approaches, it doesn't work anymore. That's not how we need to create value. We need to purposefully inject AI. We need to consider how we create value for customers even more. So a lot of leaders are not skilled yet at imagineering, that's a Disney term, the future. They've got people who are focused on today in all these different departments. And it's hard for them because if they're a visionary leader, they don't have other visionaries to talk to. And the way that you develop ideas is different if you're a visionary and you're generating things versus if you're an operations minded, bean counting, day-to-day professional, which are very important too, but they will never get you to 2x or 10x or 100x growth.
So true, so true. Mike, that is incredible. First of all, I loved how you described that entire piece as an LLM. That's really interesting. And starting a business at 13, using those earnings to fund an international experience, those early lessons in entrepreneurship, culture, and adaptability clearly shaped how you think about business today. And I really like how you tied that into SaaS applications, especially the idea that value creation depends on understanding multiple perspectives. And now with Story Miners helping executives navigate unpredictable change, it seems like your work has only become more relevant. And I guess you're right, leaders today can't just aim for incremental growth. They have to rethink entire system. And that's when AI comes in, right? It's like fundamentally shifting how businesses operate, communicate, and strategize.
Hang on. I don't think that AI should be the reshapers of business. I think that's something that humans should do. And we all need to really aggressively lean into how AI works and what it really is
Correct.
and eliminate some of the biases. I hear people all the time, seasoned executives who are my peers in networking groups, talk about AI as if they really know what's going on. And they're just repeating the chatter that they read. It's
Correct.
not enough information. It's just like this is gonna sound very crude, but AI is like a gun. It depends, what the results you get depend on how you wield it and the judgment that you bring to its use. So with AI, I think we need to be the instigators, the wielders, the architects, the designers, the users, and we need to bring intent to the table. We can't just go, "Well, what does AI say? What should I do with my business? You tell me." It's okay to use AI as a thinking partner, but you can't say AI will change business. I think that's something that we should kind of erase from our vocabulary because it promotes the idea that we're helpless with AI and actually it's there for us. And if we take that attitude, we will get better results and more of us will do that. It offers the one more thing, and then I'll give you the mic back.
Yeah,
I
of course.
think that this artificial intelligence thing is not artificial and it's not intelligent by itself. It's simply a way for human beings without a lot of programming knowledge, but who know how to speak a language, can get the world's information shaped in the way they need it very quickly. It's a way of bringing all of us together. It's a way of creating new services and, of course, new value, but we have to get in front of it. So I'm a big fan of language that promotes that. Thank you.
100%. And I love that perspective. One of our guests termed it as augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. And I think that ties back to the point a little bit. So, Mike, earlier when we were chatting, you mentioned how you have revamped all of your offerings with AI and now show up to clients differently, right? So, can you walk us through what's changed in your approach and the kinds of results that you're seeing and how other businesses can do the same?
I can't. You have to hire me for that. No, here's the deal. I'm kidding with that, and I'm not kidding with that. What I've learned is that I'm the most valuable part of my business, and just spending time with me is the value. It's not the deliverables. It's not setting the approach. It's not managing the project. It's the awareness, the experience, the insights, and especially the creativity that I bring. I'm wicked good with language, which means I can shape stories very quickly so they can become prototypes of what's the next idea, what's the next strategy, and so on. What I'm doing that's different right now, I'm thinking of one new client that I have in my head right now. They're starting a healthcare services organization that kind of fills the gaps for people who've just been diagnosed with cancer. And we know that the US system, anyway, is very oriented toward repairing broken people. But
Right.
they'll fix this part or that part or this part, but they don't take care of the whole thing. We have a lot of people and opportunities and bad experiences falling through the cracks. So this one is aimed at that. So I agreed with the client not to do deliverables. How can you not? Yeah, look at your face. What? That was not an easy sales job, to tell you the
Of
truth, but
course.
it was a collaborative conversation. But what we did is we had a series of conversations and we did some research, but we identified what kind of buckets we were going to fill up front. And then we got all this information, we tagged it, we put it in these little buckets. I call them knowledge blocks. I'm sure there's a programming term out there that somebody else has already figured out. And then we use AI to help shape and craft the language and compare and contrast the ideas, or develop some different ways to think, and then bring it back and then keep working with it. So from the get-go, we knew that AI was a partner on the engagement. So it was me and the client and an AI. And what I hope, so what we're doing, instead of the traditional deliverables, are stories. Now, don't think user stories and don't think bedtime stories. Okay. Think Avatar. Did you see the movie Avatar?
Of course. Who hasn't?
Okay. Tall blue people, very cool. One of the things that made me so excited, or two things that excited me about Avatar. The first was it was a really well told story. Is it the most valuable story in the world? No. Is it one of the best told? Absolutely. And I found out later that James Cameron commissioned what's called a dramaturgy. That's the theater name for it. But it's like a book with all the period information and the background. So the actors on stage know what's going on in the world outside of the stage, and what are the big ideas in the time period of the 1860s or whenever the play is set. So Cameron's work, I don't know what it was called, like the Book of Navi or something like that, talked about religious practices and how children were raised and how arguments were won and that weird thing they do with their hair. I think that was, but I'm not sure. So all of that stuff was defined, and the creative director and the scene people and the 3D modelers and the animators and the tweeners and all the other roles were working from the same page. They all had a similar vision of what was and wasn't possible for Navi people interacting with humans in a world where boulders hung upside down out of the air all work together. But it worked because it was all in concert. And that's the trick of using a story to express strategy. When you get all the given circumstances all turned to yes, because a lot of strategy depends. We will sell this if we make that and design it this way. And you know what the situation, you've probably been in situations where people go, I don't really think so. Or we've never done that before. Or
Yeah.
not here, son. We're not doing it that way. There's all kinds of resistance. But when you put people into a story, like, let me tell you a story. See how that changes your mindset? So
Yeah.
we create stories out of all of these knowledge blocks from different perspectives. Like, this is the consumer's perspective. This is the healthcare provider's perspective. This is the insurance company's perspective. And by seeing all those different points of view, you can see how everyone can be engaged. And when they see that they can be engaged, they tend to like the story because they're in it. Nobody likes to be told to change, but everybody likes to learn and to grow and to make something cool. So I told you I wasn't going to give you the answer, and I just did. Darn.
Well, no, but it's a very fascinating shift in approach, Mike. Like coming back to your initial points, focusing less on rigid deliverables and more on interaction, awareness, and AI as a collaborative partner. Like the example of using knowledge blocks for cancer patient support is a great example of how AI can fill the gaps in traditional systems. And that ties into something else that you mentioned, how James Cameron built an entire dramaturgy for Avatar to give depth to the story's world. So it's interesting because, in a way, that's what you're doing for businesses, helping them create a deeper, more immersive
Yeah.
narrative that aligns strategy with execution. So, do you think businesses could benefit from a similar approach, essentially developing a world building mindset for their strategy where AI acts as a contextual guide rather than just a productivity tool?
Yes and no.
Mm,
I think that it's a common tendency for people to say, "Oh, can AI do that? Can they replace that work?" I think it's really important to figure out what we as humans can do and where we need to lead. And
mhm.
I'm a big believer that unless it's something dangerous, like exploring a mind with a mine with a robot dog, that's like really smart because you don't want to put a person in peril. But when we're trying to figure things out, I think there's some positive magic. And don't take me too literally on that. I don't mean like hocus pocus and spells.
That makes sense.
Something really important about humans trying things first so they can bring back their intent and their insights and let AI augment that. And here's why that's important. Left to its own devices, any AI will fill in the gaps, a phrase that you've used. And any bias that's in the data sets will be replicated and amplified. I believe, and this is personal belief, not necessarily, it's not religious, it's not political, it's just my personal belief that we need to center the use of AI on human valued outcomes. We all need to take responsibility for thinking, all right, what is the impact on humans here? So, since we've talked about using AI in consulting, it's what we're talking about is a creative approach to doing analytical work. And both approaches are valid because creative approaches get you great movies, analytical approaches get you great industrial systems and factories and efficient shipping and all kinds of things like that. Wouldn't it be cool in the world if we could put those things together? What we need to do is remember that sometimes the creative and the human need to lead. I'm betting my firm on the notion that the insights that executives already have are very advanced and spot on because they've been living their businesses, they've been feeling what's going on, and I know how to tease out of them the rich detail that's necessary for AI to then go blast it out and make it even better and richer and more specific and code the spreadsheets and do the automated this, that, and the others. But it needs to start with a pure intent that's human centered. I believe that what you asked as a question will be so much more true in a few years. Absolutely. But we need to pave the way with really good examples that humans start because AI can't figure that out. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
No, I think that's an important point. Like AI should be an augmentation tool, not something that takes the lead blindly. And I really like how you framed it. Humans need to set the direction first, or AI will just reinforce existing biases rather than create meaningful improvements. And
Yeah.
and I think your perspective really hits on a growing concern. Businesses often chase efficiency with AI, but forget about the human element. The balance between creativity and analysis that you mentioned seems very crucial. And
Yeah.
building on that, you made a powerful statement earlier about putting humanity into AI interactions, right? So, what do you think are some practical ways businesses can ensure AI enhances human experiences rather than replacing them?
The first thing I think we can do is model what we expect from AI. So if you're building a prompt and you're saying, find a better way to sell ice cream, okay? If that's all you put in your prompt, you're going to find more manipulative ways to sell people ice cream. Boy, those extra calories look good on you, don't they? It'll give you that kind of a feeling. If you say, what's a better way to sell ice cream and you say, we have a lot of humans on this earth and some of them really deserve a break each day and they need a little, tasty pleasure to accentuate their accomplishments or to make an introduction or a date go better or blah, blah, blah. If you start with that And then you say, I want you to explore not only ways to get people to buy more ice cream, but first I want you to consider what are the moments when ice cream enjoyment can be the most enjoyable. And
Correct.
how do we make sure that ice cream and those enjoyable moments end up at the same place in the same time? And what are some different ways to deliver or to allow people to request ice cream so that it can be serendipitous and fun and unexpected sometimes? You see how I'm shifting the questions and kind of shaping the experience? That's one of the techniques that you can use to get AI to be really creative. And I want to add one more thing. I believe that in an AI powered or empowered world, we don't have to practice scarcity economics as much. Scarcity economics means there must be a loser. Okay. It's
Right.
like Monopoly. One
Yeah.
winner, everybody else is a loser. I learned this from my daughter. We were playing Monopoly. It's a contentious game in our family. We don't play it anymore because everyone fights. My daughter said, um, Dad, why don't we just stop and visit each other? When everybody's got properties, why do we try to obliterate? She didn't use the word obliterate. She was too young, but why do we have to like bankrupt everybody? Why don't we just go visit each other and say hi? That was her idea of a good end state for the game. I think that's kind of cool.
It is.
Yeah. So in this AI world, instead of practicing scarcity economics, if we think of abundance, we can then harvest all the rich interactions that we can create through AI that wouldn't be possible otherwise to create value for everyone that's in the game. Customers, suppliers, providing companies, infrastructure, all the different folks that are needed to play. AI can figure out how everyone can do better rather than one person winning and creating losers. We don't have to create losers with AI.
100%. And I think you mentioned some great examples, like just shifting the way we prompt AI completely changes the kind of outcome it generates, right? And instead of optimizing purely for sales, it becomes about creating meaningful experiences, which is a much more human-centric approach, I would say. And it
Mhm.
really makes me think about how AI isn't just about automation, but about also shaping intent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, what you said about AI-powered worlds not needing to follow traditional scarcity economics. As someone who studied economics, that's a very compelling idea. And I think if AI allows us to break free from this zero-sum mindset, where do you see the biggest opportunities for businesses to rethink value creation in a way that benefits more people rather than just maximizing short-term gains? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you just said it right there. It's just repeat what you said. Just slow it down and say it again.
Uh, Like, where do you see the biggest opportunities for businesses to rethink value creation in a way that benefits more people rather than just maximize short-term gains?
So take out the words where are and start with the benefits are, and that's the answer. There is no question. That's the answer. So good job. You don't need an interviewee. You can just do the whole thing yourself.
So shifting gears a little bit and talking about the general scope of multiple industries, like you have worked in so many industries, retail, hospitality, finance, and more. Which sector do you think AI is disrupting the most right now, and where do you see the most impact down the line in which industry?
Okay. I think that going back to the very first point that we made, AI is not disrupting things. I think what we should be looking for are people and organizations and technology combined, these combinations that are creating smooth ways forward. There's so much news of the word disruption and so many strikes and so many layoffs, and that's what makes the news. But what we need to be focusing on and copying and learning from are the folks who are integrating AI calmly, comfortably, profitably, with human-centered intent and getting good results. That's what we should be paying attention to. So let's not look for the disruptors. Let's look for the folks who are handling stasis really well,
Mhm.
because in quickly changing times, the smartest leaders are not the ones that are going crazy. They're the ones that are keeping their boats right. and they're keeping everyone on board comfortable. They're going like this, they're not going like that. So I think that's no offense, but it's a skewed question with a lot of bias.
Mm. Why would you say there's bias in
Oh,
that?
because of the word disruption. It's like everybody's like looking for disruption. I think because it portends a stock market opportunity where people earn something from just making a decision, but not from doing any work. Now, I'm a capitalist, but I
Mm,
also realize that a lot of people are motivated to make money off of others' mistakes and others' efforts.
mm,
The opportunity now is to be wise and to anticipate, to embed agility into the way people operate so that change becomes the norm, not the exception. I think we just need to not focus so much on disruption as if it's painful or profitable. And we need to look for the people that are already doing it well. They're just not in the news that much.
correct. Correct. That's such a fascinating perspective, and I think I like how you're shifting the focus from disruption to integration. It's true that headlines tend to highlight chaos, but the real game changers are often the ones quietly making AI work for them in a steady, intentional way, I would say. And I think your metaphor about keeping the boat steady instead of rocking it really resonates with business owners. That makes me think about, the past tech revolutions, like the old, like the dot-com boom, where hype often outpaced real value. So many compare today's AI boom to the internet bubble. Do you see any similarities, and what lessons should businesses keep in mind when integrating AI?
That's a good question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, Turan, is that the bubble comes from people investing before they understand. It
Mm,
comes from the wanting a quick buck,
mhm.
but that's all they want. It's just transactional. There's no like meat, there's no depth, there's not a lot of thinking. There's a lot of herd mentality that goes along with that. I think that AI for us, again, not artificial, not intelligent, just the keys to the world's kingdom of information democratized for everyone. And by democratized, I don't mean politically
Mhm.
democracy. I mean, just everybody has more access
Accessibility.
to more powerful tools, more telecommunications, more abundance than ever before. So everyone can conceivably be a maker now. And the distance between thought to reality is getting shorter by the week. It's
So true.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a really big question, and I'm having to think it through. But I learned in eighth grade about mechanical advantage. Is that a concept you've heard of before?
I have, but
Okay,
not.
so like if you have a pulley, you can lift more weight than your body is if you have it go around enough loops. So a shovel was an amazing mechanical advantage addition to the human body. Until then, when it was just your body scraping and picking up agriculture, shooting animals, whatever you did with a stone and another stone, your mechanical advantage was zero or one. I don't know how it's measured.
Right.
But with a shovel, you could lift like 10 times more. You could build troughs for water. You could build foundations for houses. You could build monuments to whomever you believed in much faster and with less effort and fewer people. It was more efficient.
Hmm.
AI is that since we've already built this world pool of knowledge over the last hundreds of years and it just grows, every day now. But we now have intellectual advantage.
Hmm.
And that's a game changer. It's not like the dot-com bubble because that wasn't about creating more value. It wasn't about giving people more stuff. It was just about doing old things better. It was about replacing old technology with new technology. You've probably heard the Henry Ford thing,
Yeah.
faster horse. So instead of horses, we have cars. Artificial intelligence is opening up a world where we can reinvent the entire world. It's not about replacing, it's about reimagining. And that's the big difference. And how we go about doing that collectively is really important. I don't think there's going to be any controlling entity. I think it boils down to the unit of one. Each of us who's taking this challenge on of harnessing the capabilities of AI needs to put good into the world. We need to put humans first. We need to think about our ethics. We need to figure out how do we create a lift for everyone. We don't need to be a gunnery ship trying to shoot all the other ships out of the harbor. We need to be the tide coming in and lifting all the boats up because that's when more value gets created. Markets become calmer, everyone is sustained, and everyone can lead a richer life. So it's not about taking, it's not about breaking, it's about making.
Oh, wow. Words to live by. And I think that's a great answer and also a great analogy. I like, just like shovels gave humans mechanical advantage by amplifying physical strength, AI is doing the same for our cognitive abilities, I would say. And yeah, it's not just about automation, it's about expanding access to knowledge in ways we have never seen before. And since you're someone who's clearly thought deeply about AI's role in work and strategy, one last question for you, Mike. I'm curious, how do you personally use AI outside of your work, and are there any interesting ways it's changed
Oh, this is
other
so much fun. Oh,
thing
I love
having
I
using
love playing with things. Yeah. So I've used AI as an armchair psychologist.
Uh-huh.
I've used it for creating trip itineraries, for writing thank you notes. And one of the most interesting things I did, this was a few months ago when Doll E and I first started dating, um, is I went back to my past where I made those little hanging planters and
Uh-huh.
I showed it some pictures of what I did. And I said, imagine that you were Dolly. What would these look like? Imagine that, Leonardo da Vinci did stuff like this. Or what if Frank Lloyd Wright was in my woodworking shop? What would he teach me? I asked questions like that, and I got some of the most fanciful designs, and I felt so inspired by them. It was just the same as, language-based AI, but it was images. So I saw all these really cool ways of building things. And then I looked really close at the drawings and I saw that they were impossible to build. Have you ever seen that picture with like three forks, but they don't match on the other side?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, these things were impossible to build, but still, I got the idea in my head, and I went into the wood shop and I made some really cool stuff using that as inspiration. So there are just so many ways to use it, and I encourage everyone to kind of play with it and find out what your comfortable boundaries are. And I also encourage you to try something and use a private space if you can instead of a public space, because who knows? Um, but try to do something that for you is sensitive or difficult so that you can start to feel with your body, with your heart, with your soul, where's the line for you? And where's that trust? And how comfortable are you like asking for help? Because one of the
Mm.
weird things about people, especially Americans, is we don't like to ask for help. We have
Is it
this
so?
Marlboro cowboy kind of nostalgic feel that, we're out there in the Wild West. We have to do it all by ourselves. And we're in a world now where if you do it with other people, it's so much better. Personal belief. So
Mm.
try something that for you is sensitive, like how to deal with your kids or what to do in an argument or how to hire somebody or fire somebody or change your priorities for the day or better manage your calendar, whatever it is. Try stuff that is uncomfortable for you so that you can expand your knowledge because we all have to get over the hump of doing things that are new for us. And if we do that in public, if we let our employees and our coworkers see us struggling and changing, everyone else will start to see, oh, that behavior is okay. Oh, we can have a conversation about that. We don't have to just go with it or dig our heels in and say no because we're afraid. So that was a great question.
No, and that's a great answer. I think it's so fascinating the way you mentioned using AI, whether it's for trip planning, reimagining, woodworking projects, or even acting as an armchair psychologist. I love the idea of using AI not just for efficiency, but for inspiration and creative exploration. And your point about experimenting in private spaces to kind of understand personal boundaries is such a valuable takeaway. It highlights how AI isn't just a tool, it's a thought partner that can push us to see things in new ways.
Mhm.
Mike, I think today's conversation brought out some really key insights, especially around how AI should be human led, how
Mhm. Mhm.
storytelling and strategy can evolve with AI, and the importance of integrating AI with stability rather than chasing disruption. And I think your perspective on using AI to enhance and not replace human experiences was incredibly thought provoking. To all our listeners, I hope this episode gave you a fresh way to think about AI's role in business, creativity, and even your personal life. Mike,
Hey, Taran,
yeah.
are you an AI? Because that was a great summary. That's just what I would have got from my chat GPT. That was excellent.
Yeah, I wish I was an AI. I hope I had my own knowledge base where learning out answers on my own.
You have a great way about a great way of summarizing and sewing the key points together. That is not an AI thing. That is your gift. So
No, I
yes.
think you're one of the best people I've had in terms of delivery of stories. So it's something
Thank
that
you.
I've learned in such a short time from you, and I really appreciate it. And I hope our audience also took away from that.
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you all for tuning in, and of course, a huge thank you to our guest Mike Wittgenstein for such an engaging and insightful conversation. Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on.
I envy everyone's journey. And Taran, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mike. Have a good day.